At my 8-year-old's $2,500 birthday party, my sister-in-law told her, "You can't eat any of the food. Ask your mom for a plate." All the other kids were served a huge menu of cakes and sweets. I didn't shout. I got up and announced this. The whole room fell dead silent. My daughter Lily had been excited about her birthday for weeks, and honestly, I wanted the day to be simple. Just family, friends, and some cake. But nothing is ever simple when my sister-in-law Brittany gets involved. She insisted on planning every detail and charged me $2,500 for catering alone. I told myself it wasn't worth a fight. I told myself Lily deserved a nice day, and I ignored the knot in my stomach. When the food arrived, all the kids rushed toward the tables. Lily ran ahead of me, smiling, pointing at everything. She loves birthdays. She loves sweets. She loves being included. Most of all, she loves feeling normal. I was walking toward her when I heard her ask, "Does this have nuts?" My whole body stopped. That one word, nuts, changed the tone of the room for me. I turned and saw her standing by the dessert table, holding a plate she hadn't filled yet, looking confused. A child next to her shrugged. Lily looked around for help. "Aunt Brittany," she said, "can I have this one?" Brittany didn't even turn around. She was standing behind the table, moving plates around like she was arranging a display at a store. "Can I have this?" Lily tried again. Without looking up, Brittany said loud and clear, "You can't eat any of the food. Ask your mom for a plate." Lily froze. Just froze. A few kids around her stared too. One already had chocolate on his face. Lily looked at their plates, then at her empty one, then at me. "Mom?" she asked softly. "Did you bring my plate?" Not crying, not whining, just confused and embarrassed. I walked straight over. "What plate?" Lily pointed back at Brittany. "She said I can't eat anything, and that you were supposed to bring my food." I looked at Brittany. "Why would you tell her that?" She finally turned around and sighed like I was the problem. "Jessica, she has a nut allergy. I assumed you brought her a safe meal." "You assumed?" "Well, yes," she said, folding her arms. "It's not fair for every other child to miss out because of one allergy, so of course I let them have the good stuff. You should have brought her plate. That's your job." Behind me, kids were already biting into things covered in chopped nuts. Lily watched them quietly, trying not to look disappointed. Paige, her older sister, slipped an arm around her, protective and tense. "Show me the menu," I said. Brittany rolled her eyes. "Jessica, don't be dramatic." But she handed me the catering sheet anyway. I scanned it. Every dessert had nuts, almonds, pistachios, hazelnuts, cashews. It didn't matter what I looked at. Everything had some type of nut. Even the fruit bowls had nut toppings. Safe options existed. She simply didn't order any. Lily's eyes moved from treat to treat, watching other children enjoy everything she couldn't touch. She looked down at her empty hands. The hurt on her face was quiet, but sharp enough to split me open. Behind me, Brittany kept talking. "You always make things bigger than they are. She can just eat later. She doesn't need to make this about her." Then her mother, Sherry, chimed in. "It's not dangerous if she doesn't eat it, Jessica." And her father, Richard, added, "You're ruining the party. Brittany worked very hard on this." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't let myself crack. But inside, something cold settled into place. I stepped onto a chair. "Everyone," I said. The word carried through the room like someone hit a switch. Conversation stopped. Kids froze. Adults looked up. "The food Brittany ordered is not safe for Lily." Silence spread like a wave. "So, we're removing all of it." A few kids gasped. One set his plate down slowly. Lily looked up at me with wide eyes. "I'll be ordering safe food now. I continued. It'll take a little time, so the children can go outside to play while we wait. A parent whispered, All of it? Yes, I said. All of it. I looked right at Brittany. She looked stunned, then offended, then furious. If anyone disagrees, I added calmly, you are free to take your plate and step outside. But this food cannot stay in here with my daughter. No yelling, no theatrics, just a simple fact. My husband Michael moved beside me then, quietly but firmly standing with me. He didn't say a word, but the look on his face was new, a line drawn finally. For a full 5 seconds, no one breathed. Not really. It was a silence with weight. Sherry's mouth hung open like she was trying to speak and couldn't find the words. Richard looked like someone had unplugged him. And Brittany? She stood there gripping the edge of the table, staring at me like she didn't recognize who I was, as if she couldn't believe I was choosing my daughter over her. But Lily? She looked at me like the world had tilted back into place. That silence told me everything. They knew exactly what Brittany had done, and they knew this wasn't over. If you've ever ignored your own instincts because you didn't want to cause drama, let me tell you a secret I learned the hard way. Drama is coming anyway. It just arrives later, louder, and usually when there's cake nearby. I didn't always understand how Brittany became the center of Michael's family universe. I didn't grow up with her, so I didn't witness the early years of her reign. I only got the highlights after I married into the family, usually through uncomfortable dinners where my in-laws would retell old stories with the same proud tone people normally use for surgeons or war heroes. Apparently, Brittany learned to walk early, talk early, dance early, charm teachers early, and ruin lives professionally by the age of 32. Michael existed somewhere around the edges of the family photo album, smiling politely with the body language of someone who'd accepted second place long ago. He tried to warn me early in our relationship. She's intense, Michael said once, after Brittany hijacked our anniversary dinner by announcing she was writing a book on elevated event styling and insisting we brainstorm chapter titles between courses. Intense? I asked. Like a personal trainer? Intense like a small tornado, he said. But she means well. Right. By the time we had Paige and Lily, now 11 and 8, I'd collected plenty of field data. When I say Brittany was the favorite, I don't mean by an inch. I mean by a full marathon. Every conversation with Sherry and Richard began with Brittany, circled around Brittany, and ended with Brittany's children, Haley and Carter, who apparently could do no wrong. Meanwhile, Paige and Lily were the nice girls, which in their vocabulary meant, don't ask for anything. Family gatherings had a pattern. Haley and Carter were given first pick of everything. Gifts, treats, games, attention. While my girls were gently told, let them go first, they're younger. Even if technically they weren't younger, or smaller, or being reasonable human beings. Once, Paige tried to show Richard a drawing she spent hours on. He glanced at it for half a second, said, that's nice, and then turned to watch Haley demonstrate her special dance, which was just her waving her arms like a damp towel. He applauded like she'd cured a disease. Michael always tensed up during these moments. He'd stay quiet, stiff, like he was watching an old wound reopen. Later, alone in the car, he'd say things like, they mean well, or, it's not worth the fight, or, I don't want to upset them. He'd learned to shrink himself to avoid conflict. I didn't know yet how deep that training ran. Then came college, or more accurately, Brittany's college. When Michael turned 18, Sherry and Richard told him they couldn't afford to help him with tuition. He got a job. He applied for scholarships. He took loans. He made it work because he always made things work. But when Brittany graduated high school 4 years later, there was suddenly money. Plenty of it. We want her to focus on her studies, they said. She has so much potential." Michael didn't say a word. Not one. He just sat there with his jaw tight while they explained that it would mean a lot if he could contribute too. And of course he did. Because that's who he was. Because he felt guilty saying no. Because that family trained him to feel responsible for Brittany's comfort. By the time I married him, he was still sending them money. Quietly. Regular amounts. Sherry called it helping the family. It was really funding the favorite child's lifestyle. And yes, that included Brittany's kids later too. Birthday gifts, sports fees, random emergencies. There was always something. I didn't complain. I didn't push. I didn't want to create rifts. But it bothered me. The way they leaned on him financially while pretending he should be grateful for their attention. The way they acted like his success belonged to them, but his needs were an inconvenience. Then Lily developed her allergy. It didn't happen slowly or gently. One afternoon, she took a bite of a cookie at a friend's house. She didn't know. We didn't know. The friend's mom didn't know. 10 minutes later, she was gasping for breath, her lips swelling, her skin blotchy and hot, and I was running out the door with her in my arms, Paige crying behind me, and Michael speeding us to the hospital so fast my vision blurred. I will never forget the sound she made in the back seat. I still wake up some nights thinking I hear it. She lived, but barely. And everything changed after that. No nuts in the house. No nuts at restaurants. No nuts anywhere near her. Paige turned into her personal guard dog, checking labels, watching hands, hovering like a tiny bodyguard with stickers and sanitizer. And the whole family knew. Because we told them. More than once. Because we needed them to know. But some people take information and file it away. Others take it and pretend it's an opinion. Sherry acted like we were overreacting. Richard thought it was just a kid thing. And Brittany, of course, believed it was an inconvenience. When Brittany announced her new party planning business, she immediately inserted herself into Lily's birthday like it was her first big client. "I'll handle everything," she said, already making decisions before we agreed. Michael tried to push back, but Brittany steamrolled right over him. She always did. "It'll be good exposure," she told me, pretending to offer help while taking control. And just like that, we were locked in. I was paying for things I didn't want, and Michael was shrinking into old habits that his family had trained into him. I told myself it was fine. Just a children's party. Nothing serious, but something in my gut knew better. And I didn't realize how right I was until the moment everything collapsed. Because Lily's birthday wasn't going to be a celebration. It was going to be the moment the whole truth finally snapped open. There's a certain type of silence that feels like the moment before a glass shatters. That's what filled the room after my announcement. Kids froze mid-bite. Parents looked around like someone had pulled a fire alarm. Lily pressed herself into my side. Paige stepped closer, already in protective mode. And then, of course, Brittany snapped first. "You're ruining your own kid's party," she said, voice high and shaking. This is mania, Jessica. Everything was fine." "Fine. Sure, if you ignored the nuts covering half the room." She kept talking, waving her arms like a malfunctioning windmill. "You can't expect nobody to eat something just because she can't. She doesn't have to eat it. You never told me to order anything special. I just assumed. We can order something for her. We don't need to take everything away." Her words came out in frantic bursts, like she was trying to grab control back with sheer volume. Before I replied, Sherry moved in, dragging Richard with her like backup singers in a bad musical. "Our daughter worked day and night on this party," Sherry said, voice rising. "She picked every detail. She planned everything. She did this for Lily, and you're standing here treating her horribly." Michael stood up. He stood so suddenly the room actually gasped. I gasped. I didn't even know he could move that fast. Michael never stands up in conflict. He fades. He disappears. He becomes part of the furniture. But now he was standing between me and his family, shoulders squared, jaw set, looking like someone I didn't recognize. And then he said the words no one expected. "You need to leave." Just like that. No build-up, no emotion, just a clean, sharp command that sliced right through the room. "What?" Sherry whispered. Michael didn't blink. "All three of you, leave." You could feel the shock hit Brittany like a physical slap. She wasn't used to being told no, let alone get out. "Michael," she said, laughing nervously, "don't do this. She's being dramatic." "You put Lily at risk," he said. He didn't raise his voice, but the entire room felt it. Richard tried to jump in. "Nobody put her at risk. She could have died," Michael said, louder now. "And you're defending it." That shut Richard up. Completely. Sherry's eyes went wide. "We didn't do anything wrong." Michael turned toward her. "No, you all stood here arguing about food while she was scared and confused." He pointed toward Lily, who was clinging to Paige's sleeve. "You're not going to do that to her." Brittany swallowed hard. "You're choosing her over your own family?" Michael didn't flinch. "I'm choosing my daughter." He didn't add anything else. He didn't need to. That sentence alone ended the entire argument. For a second, no one breathed. Then Brittany scoffed sharply, grabbed Haley and Carter, and stormed toward the door. Sherry and Richard followed, still glaring back at Michael as if hoping he'd backpedal. He didn't. They walked out into the hallway, and the door slammed shut behind them. The moment it closed, it felt like the air finally moved again. I knelt beside Lily. She tugged on my arm with trembling fingers. "Mom, did I do something wrong?" I shook my head. "No, sweetheart. Not at all." Paige wrapped her arms around her sister from behind, whispering something soft I couldn't hear. Across the room, one of the parents, the kind, quiet type, stood up and said, "Kids, who wants to play outside for a bit?" And just like that, the frozen moment cracked. They scattered toward the yard, relieved to escape the tension. I ordered the replacement food as soon as the kids were outside. It took a while to arrive, long enough for us to breathe, but not long enough for anyone to leave. People helped set it out without being asked. There were small, sympathetic smiles, tiny squeezes on my arm, that silent parent-to-parent understanding. Michael stayed beside me. He didn't speak. He was still breathing like someone who had just run uphill. I looked at him, this man who had spent his entire life shrinking himself around his family, the man who always tried to keep the peace, even when it suffocated him. And now he'd done the one thing nobody ever believed he would do. He stood up. He chose his daughter. He chose us. Lily came back inside, running straight into Michael's arms. He lifted her without thinking, held her tight, buried his face in her hair like he was rebooting from the inside out. Outside, the kids were laughing again. Parents were chatting quietly. Paige was bringing Lily a safe cupcake with sprinkles. And inside me, something settled. Not peace exactly, more like certainty. Because once Michael said those words, "You need to leave," there was no going back. The party was still happening around us. Kids playing, food arriving, people adjusting. But the real story? It had only just begun. The house felt too quiet when we walked in that evening. Not peaceful. Quiet in the way hospitals get quiet. Controlled, tense, waiting. The girls went straight to their rooms in that post-party exhaustion only sugar crashes can create. Lily was smiling, though. That mattered. She'd eaten her safe food, played with friends, laughed with Paige. Whatever storm happened around her, she still walked out with a birthday. Michael and I stood in the hallway like we didn't know where to put our bodies. He kept rubbing the back of his neck. I kept pacing because standing still makes me feel like I'm drowning. I finally said it. That was insane. He didn't answer, not with words. He just walked into his office, opened his laptop, and his whole posture changed. Not frantic, not emotional, focused. He clicked into his banking apps like someone logging into a demolition control panel. "What are you doing?" I asked, stepping behind him. He didn't look up. "Finishing what I started." 4 taps later, his parents' monthly transfer was gone. 3 more, and the emergency credit line he'd opened for them years ago was canceled. He deleted scheduled payments, standing orders, every financial tie his family had knotted around him. It all happened in under 2 minutes. No hesitation, no regret, no dramatic declarations. Just click, click, click. Centuries of family obligation erased. Watching him do it was like watching someone finally cut a rope from around their own throat. And then, in the middle of the silence, he said, "I'm done." 2 words. Quiet. Final. Terrifying in their certainty, before I could respond, he picked up his phone, typed one single message in the family group chat, and hit send. "Paige and Lily will not be attending any future events. We're protecting our daughters. Please don't contact us again." That was it. No explanation. No apology. No invitation for debate. Michael, professional peacekeeper, just nuked the bridge in one line. I sat down at the edge of the couch, watching him like he had grown new bones. He didn't sit with me. Didn't need to. He just reached over, rested his hand on my shoulder for half a second, the smallest anchor, and then got up again. "Jessica," he said. "Yeah?" "Cancel the catering payment." It wasn't a question. Oh. I liked this version of my husband. Brittany had billed me through her event planning startup. She had even added a little sparkle emoji next to her business name when she sent the invoice. My bank app pulled it right up. $2,500. Brittany Events LLC. I clicked dispute and typed, "Unsafe food provided. Child with known allergy endangered. Service unusable." Sent. Done. It took 14 seconds. Somewhere in the distance, I swear the universe leaned back and whispered, "Uh-oh." Because Brittany noticed fast. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up with her name. Then again, and again. Then her texts started coming in like machine gun fire. "What did you do? You canceled the payment? That was my money. I already spent it. You're robbing me." "Jessica, answer me right now." I did not answer. I turned the phone face down on the couch and stared at the ceiling. "This is going to get loud," I said. Michael nodded once. "Let it." It got loud faster than I expected. Someone sent me a screenshot 5 minutes later. Brittany had posted on her Facebook business page, then on her regular page, then in a neighborhood group, then in the extended family chat. She was everywhere at once. "I was robbed today. My own sister-in-law refused to pay for a full-service party I planned for months. I spent money I didn't have, and now she stole it from me." The comments were rolling in. Some were supportive, because there is always at least one person dumb enough to swallow anything with a sob story attached. But then the real comments started. "Wait, weren't you the one who served unsafe food to a child? If you can't follow an allergy list, maybe this business isn't for you. She was right to cancel. Honestly, you should be paying them. Why did you serve nuts at a party with kids?" One woman even wrote, "Your services are dangerous. Shut this down before someone gets hurt." And then someone else wrote, "Never hiring you. Ever." Brittany's replies were unhinged. "It wasn't my fault. She should have brought a plate. She's teaching her kid to be selfish. None of that food was for her. I did nothing wrong." Watching it unfold was like watching someone try to put out a fire with gasoline. I might have enjoyed it a little too much, but the hit came when I checked her business page again an hour later. 1-star reviews were already appearing, not from the party guests, just from people reading her meltdown. The internet moved faster than guilt. At 9:13 p.m., she posted a final message. "I'm closing my business. Happy now?" Yes, I was. Just when I was about to breathe again, my phone started ringing. Sherry. Of course. Then Richard. Then Brittany. Then the three of them in a group call named Family Emergency. We ignored all of them. Michael slid his phone into a drawer like someone putting away a loaded weapon. But they weren't done. Because the next morning, they realized something. The money was gone. All of it. Every monthly payment. Every emergency transfer. Every quiet loan. Years of support they never once said thank you for. The screaming started early. Michael's phone lit up with, "Where is the money? The bank is wrong. Fix this, bring back the payments." "Now you owe us, Michael. Pick up the phone," he replied once. Just once. "No mistake." Silence. Short-lived silence. Because at 11:47 a.m., our doorbell rang. I opened the door slowly. There they were. Sherry, Richard, and Brittany, looking like someone had shoved her into a blender and hit pulse. Sherry started before I even said hello. "You will fix this." Richard. "We relied on that support." Brittany. "I spent that money. Do you know what you did to me?" Michael stepped beside me, and for the second time in 24 hours, he shocked them speechless. "We're done," he said. "No," Sherry snapped. "You don't get to be done. You exploited me for years." She shut up. Richard blinked rapidly. "We never. You took money from me every month and acted like it was owed." Brittany's voice cracked. "You stole from me. You endangered my daughter," he said. "Then you defended it." They all stopped talking. He kept going. "You lied about Jessica. You attacked her. You humiliated her. You tried to blame her for protecting Lily." Sherry swallowed hard. "Michael?" "You're not safe for my kids," he said, "and I will not let you near them again." Her mouth dropped open. "This is the line," he said softly. "And you crossed it." No shouting. Just truth. Brittany stepped forward. "You can't do this." Michael shook his head. "Leave." That one word hit them harder than anything else. They glared. They sputtered. But they left. The door shut behind them with a final, echoing click. Michael leaned against the wall for a moment, palms pressed to it like he needed to steady the world. I walked to him, put a hand on his back. "We're free," I said. He exhaled, long, shaking, like he'd been holding that breath for a lifetime. And as I stared at the closed door, at the silence filling our home, at the space where their voices no longer lived, I realized something. They didn't just lose access to us. They lost control. They lost their power. And they lost the one person who had always said yes to them. Michael finally said no. And this time, it meant forever. So, what do you think? Did we go too far? Or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more. My sister picked up my 6-year-old and tossed her into the deep pool. She knew my daughter couldn't swim. My daughter screamed. I was the only one who jumped in to save her. After that, I didn't cry. I did this. 2 weeks later, their lives started to unravel. It was supposed to be a simple family weekend. Every disaster in my life starts with the words family weekend. My daughter Aria was doing something brave, something tiny, ridiculous, ordinary, unless you were 6 years old and terrified of water. She was standing ankle-deep in the toddler splash pad behind our holiday rental, gripping my hand like the ground might swallow her. The water barely reached her toes, but her whole little body trembled. "You're doing great," I whispered. She nodded, breath shaky, towel waiting behind her like an escape plan. My sister Janelle's kids, Zach and Paige, were at the real pool, the deep one, launching themselves into it like caffeinated stunt doubles. They screamed, splashed, and caused small tsunamis with every cannonball. "Come on, Arya, it's just water," Zach yelled. Paige added, "You're such a chicken." Arya flinched like the droplets were bullets. I shot Janelle the universal, "Your children are being demons look." She shrugged without a hint of shame. "Relax, Leah. They're helping her toughen up." Right. That's how my sister parents, chaos as character development. My parents sat in plastic loungers nearby, nodding sagely like they were presiding over a TED Talk on bravery. "You baby her too much," my mother said. My father added, "Kids need a push." Of course I was the problem. That's just the family position on everything. Arya took a tiny step forward. 1 inch. That was all. Then she stepped back out, shaking and proud, and sat beside me wrapped in her towel. Honestly, my heart nearly burst. "Mom?" she whispered. "I did it." "Yes," I said. "You really did." And this is where a narrator with hindsight would warn you the peace was temporary. But I didn't know that yet. What I did know, I wasn't allowed to swim. Minor procedure, stitches, no water. Arya wasn't swimming either. Full body fear, and the rental house had plenty to do besides the stupid pool. So when I stood and told her, "I'm going to use the bathroom. I'll be right back," nothing about it felt dangerous. She nodded, tucked into her towel like a baby chick, and stayed right where I left her. I walked off. Maybe 30 seconds, a minute at most. Then I heard it. A scream. Sharp. Pure panic. A child's scream. My child's scream. My heart dropped so hard it hurt I ran. I don't remember crossing the patio or the yard. I just remember reaching the pool and seeing the thing that should never happen to a terrified 6-year-old. Arya was in the deep end. My daughter, who panics when the bathwater touches her ears, was sinking, thrashing, choking, fighting for the surface. And my entire family, my parents, my sister, her husband, their children, stood around like spectators at a wildlife documentary. Zach and Paige were frozen on the edge. Fascinated, Derek clutched a beer. My parents looked mildly inconvenienced. And Janelle, arms crossed, expression annoyed. Not one of them reached for her. I didn't know how she got in. Slip? Trip? A push? I didn't have time to think. I dove. Clothes, shoes, stitches, the whole lot. The chlorine hit my wound like acid, but pain was a luxury I couldn't afford. I got to her and hauled her above the surface. Her sobs tore into my shoulder, hands gripping the fabric of my shirt as if she could fuse herself into my ribs. "Got you. I've got you," I kept whispering, though my voice shook. When we got out of the pool, she clung to me so tightly I could barely breathe. "How did she—" I asked, my voice already breaking. Arya gasped, trembling so violently I felt it in my bones. "Aunt Janelle, she picked me up. She threw me. I couldn't breathe." She threw her. I turned to Janelle, barely seeing her through the red fog in my head. "You threw my her?" Janelle rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on, Leah. This is how kids learn Zach and Paige are amazing swimmers. And you've seen those TikTok videos where instructors toss babies in? It works." "That," I said, choking on rage, "is not the same thing." My mother chimed in, tone dripping judgment. "You're overreacting." And my father, never one to miss an opportunity for disappointment. "You always make things worse with your dramatics." Arya's little voice broke against my shoulder. I thought I was going to die. Please don't make me go in again. Something inside me shifted hard, cold, final. I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I didn't even look at them again. I wrapped Arya tighter, grabbed our bags one-handed, and walked. "Leah!" Janelle yelled. "Oh my God, don't be so dramatic." I kept walking. People who look back still expect empathy. I didn't. Arya cried the first 10 minutes of the drive, then exhaustion swallowed her whole, and she fell asleep in the passenger seat. Damp hair sticking to her cheek, tiny fists still curled. I stared at the road ahead, hands locked on the wheel. I didn't cry. I did something else. 2 weeks later, their lives started to unravel. I wish I could say what Janelle did to Arya came out of nowhere, but if I'm being honest, it was the last chapter of a story that started decades ago. Growing up, I was the cautious one. That's the polite version. My family had other words. Scaredy cat. Too quiet. Overthinker. And my personal favorite, dramatic. Said by people who have never recognized an emotion in their lives. My older sister, Janelle, she was the opposite. A tornado in human form. Climbed everything, jumped off anything, ran headfirst into danger like she had a death wish wrapped in confidence. My parents loved it. Look how brave she is! Fearless. Just like her mother. Meanwhile, I was the one saying, maybe don't sprint toward the cliff edge, and being told, stop being so negative, Leah. That was the parenting style. If you weren't reckless, you were wrong. My relationship with water was the first casualty. I didn't have a phobia like Arya, but I hated being splashed in the face and I hated waves. You would think a normal family would respect that. Mine enrolled me in swim club. 3 years, twice a week. Practice until she stops acting scared. Fear wasn't something to understand. It was something to punish. By high school, the roles were locked in. Janelle equals fearless star. Me equals fragile disappointment. You'd think adulthood would fix things, maybe with distance and therapy and, I don't know, a functioning prefrontal cortex. Nope. We grew up, but the dynamic didn't. Janelle became the adult version of a roller coaster. Exciting to watch, dangerous to ride, constantly on the brink of shutting down for safety violations. She chased thrills, trips, hobbies, adventures, and debt. My parents weren't far behind her, still throwing money at experiences while ignoring things like bills, budgets, or basic math. And me? I committed the family's greatest crime. I chose stability. I became an accountant, a job my parents described as soul-crushing and for people with no imagination. I bought a sensible car. I didn't go bungee jumping. I didn't buy kayaks. I didn't chase living life to the fullest, otherwise known as poor impulse control. The funny thing about stable people, we become the safety net for unstable ones. I paid emergency bills, covered temporary loans that lasted longer than some marriages, co-signed a loan for Janelle's flashy car because her credit score was basically arterial bleeding, put my name on my parents' mortgage extension because theirs was radioactive. And the whole time they mocked me. Leah, you're so boring. Loosen up. You need adventure in your life. It's amazing how people think you're dull while holding out their hands for help. Then Arya was born, and I recognized something in her immediately. Not fear exactly, but sensitivity, caution, careful observation. The things my family despised on sight. Her fear of water was intense. Instinctive. When she was a toddler and bathwater touched her ears, she shook. Not theatrically, not for attention. Her body just reacted. I knew that feeling. Not as strong as hers, but enough to understand it wasn't a choice. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't weakness. But my family didn't see it that way. History doesn't just repeat in my family. It accelerates. The first time Arya refused to go near the beach, my mother sighed, "Oh great, another one. Another sensitive child. Another one who wouldn't fit their mold." Janelle said, "Just dunk her. She'll get over it." I told her to stop giving 1950s parenting advice, but she laughed and said I was soft. Her kids, Zach and Paige, were the golden grandchildren, confident swimmers, fearless jumpers, the kind who shout, "Watch this," before doing something that requires medical insurance. Every time they leapt into water, my parents clapped. Every time Arya hid behind me, they judged. "Look at the difference," Mom whispered once, not quietly. And that stung in a way I don't think she'll ever understand. But the worst part was this. I genuinely believed I could protect Arya by staying close, staying patient, staying calm. I genuinely believed they would never push her too far. I should have walked away from them years earlier, but I didn't. And because I didn't, they took the first chance they got to prove I was wrong. What happened next made the pool incident look gentle. By the time I pulled into our driveway after the pool incident, my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the keys. Arya was asleep in the passenger seat, or more accurately, passed out from exhaustion. Little fists still curled like she was bracing for the water to pull her under again. My husband, Simon, opened the front door before I even reached it. One look at my face, then at Arya's wet hair and blotchy cheeks, and he froze. "What happened?" he whispered. I didn't sugarcoat it. I didn't have the strength. "Janelle threw her," I said flatly. "Into the deep end." Simon went still. Not the dramatic kind of still, the dangerous kind. The kind that comes right before something explodes. "She threw her?" I nodded once. That was all it took. Simon's whole body clenched like he was trying not to punch the universe. I got Arya out of the car and carried her inside. Yes, carried, because even unconscious, she clung to me like I was the last dry place on earth. I laid her on her bed. She stirred, whimpered, then immediately relaxed only when she realized I was still there. The kind of reaction a child has when they've been truly terrified. I tucked her in gently. For the first time in my life, silence hurt. Simon sat beside me, voice low. "What now?" I looked at Arya's tiny shaking breaths, the trauma still visible even in sleep. "Now," I said, "we stop pretending they're normal." When I went downstairs, something inside me shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just permanently. I walked to my laptop, opened it, and, without fury, without shaking, began ending things. Step 1, the mortgage. Every month I'd been contributing to my parents' payments because family sticks together. Right, cancel. Step 2, the refinancing. They were counting on my income to secure a better rate when their fixed term ended. I removed myself from the application with a single click. Then I called the bank. A polite man answered, and I matched his politeness with icy calm. "I need to withdraw my consent to co-sign my parents' renewal," I said. "It's effective immediately." There was a short pause. "That will affect their eligibility." "Good," I said, and meant it. Next, Janelle's car. Ah, yes. The car. The flashy, impractical, high-payment monstrosity she loved bragging about. The one she couldn't afford without my signature floating under it like a financial life raft I called the loan company. "I'm removing my authorization for payment guarantees," I said. Another pause. Another polite voice. "That will put the account at risk." "Perfect." I wasn't cutting them off, I was handing their lives back to them. The next morning it began. I wasn't even done pouring coffee before my phone started vibrating like it was possessed. Mom calling. Decline. Dad calling. Decline. Janelle calling. Decline. then all three at once. I sighed and answered before the house woke up. The noise was instant. "What did you do?" "The bank is saying, we can't afford this. Are you insane? You're overreacting." "That was nothing. She just needed—" I didn't speak. I let the chaos burn itself out. Then, when they paused long enough to breathe, I said one sentence. "She could have died because of you." A beat of silence, and then, of course, laughter. Laughter. Mom: "You're so dramatic." Dad: "You always exaggerate." Janelle: "If you hadn't jumped in, she'd probably be swimming by now." Swimming. My 6-year-old child who screams if bathwater hits her ears. I hung up mid-sentence. I didn't want to hear what came next. I already knew the script. I'd lived it my whole life. When I went back upstairs, Arya was awake, curled into a tight ball at the edge of her bed. She flinched when the bathroom faucet dripped. She asked, tiny and trembling, "Is the water going to come out fast?" "No," I said gently. "Can I skip the shower?" "Of course." She hesitated, then whispered. The water pulled me. I thought it wanted me. I sat beside her and wrapped her in my arms. "They think bravery is jumping off cliffs," I murmured. "They don't understand the courage it took for you to stand in that tiny splash pad yesterday." She leaned into me, and for a moment, everything was still, but not peaceful. Not yet. That night, while Simon made dinner, I watched Arya at the table, trying to color. Her hands shook, but she kept coloring anyway. A tiny act of persistence. A tiny act of bravery no one but me would ever understand. "She's braver than any of them," I said under my breath. Simon looked up, confused. I shook my head. "Nothing." The truth was too big to say out loud. I thought pulling her out of the pool was the end of it, that I'd done the hard part, that the nightmare was over. But trauma doesn't end when the danger ends. And families like mine, they don't apologize, they retaliate. I didn't know it that night, watching Arya press her crayon a little too hard against the paper. I didn't know they were already planning something worse, something loud, something reckless, something that would change everything again. But I'd learn soon, because 2 weeks later, they didn't just ignore a boundary, they crossed one I didn't even know could be crossed. And when they did, all hell broke loose. The school parking lot was half empty when I pulled in that afternoon. I was humming, an actual hum, something light, because for once, after 2 weeks of nightmares and whispered reassurances, Arya had slept through the night I walked into the office expecting the same routine we'd done 100 times. Sign in, smile at the secretary, go home. Instead, the secretary looked up and said the sentence that dropped me straight out of my own body. "Oh, you just missed her. She was picked up early." Everything inside me froze. Picked up by who? She glanced at the form on her clipboard like it was nothing, her grandmother and aunt. It was on her emergency contact list. My heart punched my ribs so hard I swear I heard it. My parents. Janelle. The people I had just cut off. The people who had nearly drowned my child. The people I explicitly told to stay away. I couldn't breathe. "They're not allowed to pick her up," I managed. "Not anymore." The secretary blinked, confused but not alarmed. "Well, they were on the list, so—" I didn't let her finish. I was already dialing. I called my mother. No answer. I called my father. No answer. I called Janelle. Straight to voicemail. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. I called again. And again. And again. Nothing. I felt something inside me split open. Not fear, not anger. Something worse. Something cold. Something that whispered, "You know what they're capable of." I dialed 911. "My 6-year-old daughter has been taken without permission," I said. My voice was thin, almost clinical. Her last contact with these people resulted in physical endangerment. I need help. Now. The dispatcher didn't waste time. Officers were on their way. For the first time that day, I breathed. Not deeply, just enough to stay upright. The officers arrived at the school in minutes. I retold everything in quick, clipped sentences. No crying, no dramatics, just facts. They had emergency permission for true emergencies only, I said. They've never used it. Ever. Until today. And they knew they weren't supposed to take her? Yes. And you believe she's in danger? I thought of Arya's screams when she hit the water, her trembling hands, her nightmares. Yes, I said. I absolutely do. They didn't question it. One officer stepped aside to radio dispatch. The other asked for descriptions, phone numbers, vehicle details, everything I could give. Simon arrived 10 minutes later, practically skidding into the lot. What happened? He demanded. I didn't even answer. The look on my face told him everything. Then the radio crackled. Location found. My stomach dropped. A community swimming pool. Of course. Of course. Janelle had taken Arya, my water-phobic, traumatized 6-year-old, to another pool. I didn't think I didn't breathe. I just ran to the car. The officers followed. Simon drove like the road was dissolving under us. I kept seeing Arya's face from 2 weeks ago. Bluish lips, eyes wide, clinging to me with shaking hands. I couldn't lose her again, not even for a second. When we pulled up, my legs nearly gave out. I didn't wait for the officers. I didn't wait for Simon. I sprinted through the lobby, through the changing area, through the echoing mess of tile and chlorine. And then I heard it. Crying. Small high. Panicked. My daughter. I ran so fast I slipped on the wet floor, but I got there, and what I saw made something in me snap clean in half. Arya was backed into a corner of the pool deck, clutching a dry towel to her chest like armor. Tears streaked down her face. Her whole body shook. My parents stood nearby. Janelle was next to them, and beside her was a man I'd never seen, a swim instructor by the look of his goggles and shirt. They weren't throwing her in again. This time, they were trying to coach her, force her, convince her that the problem was her fear, not their cruelty. We're trying to help her, my mother snapped before I said a word. She needs to learn to swim, Dad added. She'll thank us one day, Janelle chimed in, voice bright and poisonous. I didn't yell, didn't scream. I just said, Arya. She looked up. The second she saw me, she ran, full sprint, into my arms, sobbing so hard she hiccuped. I lifted her, held her tight, and turned to the officer behind me. That's my daughter, I said. I did not give permission for this. The officer stepped between me and my family. My mother spluttered. We're family! He held up a hand. Ma'am, you were not authorized to take this child. You'll need to step back. Janelle scoffed. Are you kidding? We're fixing her fear. Leah is the problem. Always has been. The officer looked at me. You want to press custodial interference? Yes, I said. Immediately. My parents froze. Janelle's mouth fell open. You wouldn't do that, she hissed. You threw my child into a pool, I said. And today, you took her from school without permission, so yes, I absolutely would. The rest moved fast. Statements, warnings, a formal report. A very awkward moment when the instructor realized he'd been pulled into a family meltdown and quietly exited the building. Arya clung to me the whole time. She refused to look at any of them. Not once. When it was finally done and the officers walked us to the car, she whispered, Can we go home now? I kissed her forehead. Yes, baby. We're going home. That night, while Simon sat with Arya and read her a story, I filed the cease and desist. removed every emergency pickup permission, cut the final strings of financial tethering. Mortgage, gone. Car, gone. All access, gone blocked, permanently. I didn't care if they screamed, I didn't care if they spiraled, and I definitely didn't care if their lives fell apart. They crossed the line. And I was done. Arya fell asleep in her own bed, breathing slowly, safely, deeply. I stood in the doorway, the light from the hall catching the soft curve of her cheek, and thought, if this is what protecting her costs, I'd pay it 1,000 times. And then I closed her door. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Blocked numbers, all of them. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Tomorrow would take care of itself. But for the first time in weeks, I knew this. They were finished. And we were finally free. 3 years later, I barely recognize the life we live now, quiet, steady, almost boring in the best possible way. There's a baby in the house now, toddling around with fists full of crackers and a talent for chaos. Arya adores him. She's 9, taller, still cautious, still sensitive, but peaceful. A different child than the one shaking in my arms in that pool. As for my family, they folded fast. Janelle lost her car within months. The repo truck came at dawn, and judging from the screaming voice memo she left me, it was a performance worthy of an Oscar. My parents tried to refinance their mortgage without my name. Spoiler, it didn't happen. Their payments doubled overnight. Within a year, the house was gone, sold off in a panic, then replaced with a cramped rental on the edge of a town where no one knows them and no one cares. Their social circle evaporated too. Turns out word about that pool incident traveled faster than chlorine. I didn't have to lift a finger. They did all the unraveling themselves. Meanwhile, Arya healed slowly. Baths became tolerable again. Then showers. She still wouldn't go near a pool, and I didn't push it. Not once. But courage has a quiet way of showing up when you least expect it. A few months ago, we were at a kiddie pool with the baby. Shallow water, barely ankle deep. He slipped. Just a little stumble, but enough to make him yelp. I froze. For a heartbeat, I was back in that backyard, watching her drown. But Arya? She moved first. She ran straight into the water, scooped her brother up under his arms, and held him until he stopped crying. Her knees were shaking. Her voice was trembling. But she did it. She didn't even look back to see if I was coming. It wasn't deep. It wasn't dangerous. But for her, it was a mountain. She hasn't lost her fear. But now she knows, with absolute certainty, that she can rise above it when someone needs her. Fear didn't make her weak. Love made her brave. So what do you think? Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.